Some of the officers from the Virgin Islands went through here and actually saw her in there, and the dogs were showing a lot of interest, so we checked it out and confirmed, and yeah, it's terrible. It's not good news at all. It's terrible.
They found her tiny body discarded under a pile of garbage and dead animals, just like she was nothing. She was taken to a hotel, assaulted, and then strangled, all while her mother knew exactly what was happening. A 5-year-old, sold by the one person who was supposed to protect her. The one person who should have loved her unconditionally. For $200, Shania Davis was handed over to a predator by her own mother. This case is as horrifying as it gets. Today, we'll go through how an innocent child was sold and sacrificed by her own mother in one of the most shocking crimes I've ever covered. This is the story of how a mother's betrayal and a predator's cruelty ended an innocent life. As we go through the details of this heartbreaking case, I invite you to reflect on the fragility of trust and the importance of protecting our children. This is a tale that must be told, not only to remember Shania, but also to raise awareness about the evils that can lurk in the shadows of our communities. Shania Davis was born on June 14, 2004, bringing joy into the lives of her family. Her father, Bradley Lockhart, and her mother, Antoinette Davis, welcomed her with open arms, hoping for a bright future filled with laughter and love. Growing up, Shania had a cheerful and outgoing personality. She was the kind of child who could easily light up a room with her smile. Playing outside was her favorite activity, whether she was riding her scooter or running around with her friends. Her energy was contagious, and her laughter often echoed in the neighborhood. Shania had a natural ability to make friends. Her kind heart and playful spirit drew other children to her, and they would often spend hours playing games and creating memories together. To anyone who knew her, she was a happy child with a promising life ahead. Unfortunately, this innocence and brightness were about to be overshadowed by unimaginable tragedy. As we look back on Shania's early life, it is painful to think about how a little girl with so much potential and love around her could be thrust into a nightmare that would forever change her story. Her life should have been filled with joyful moments, but the darkness of betrayal was lurking just around the corner. The relationship between Brad Lockhart and Antoinette Davis was far from a fairy tale. Once a couple full of dreams, their love quickly soured, revealing a darker side to their life together. They had 2 children, with Shania being the youngest. However, the strain of their crumbling marriage took a toll on the family, and eventually, Brad and Antoinette decided to get a divorce. This separation marked the beginning of a painful journey for everyone involved. Antoinette's struggles became evident after the split. She spiraled into drug addiction, abandoning her responsibilities as a mother. Shania and her older brother, Carl, were left to navigate a chaotic world without the guidance they desperately needed. In a desperate bid to protect his children, Brad fought fiercely for custody. His heart had already been shattered by the violent death of his first wife, Vicky, who was brutally murdered during a home invasion. Thieves broke into their home, bound her, and ended her life, believing they would find cash. This horrifying tragedy left Brad a shell of his former self, burdened with grief and fear. Despite the overwhelming darkness surrounding him, Brad struggled to rise from the ashes of his losses. He worked tirelessly to become a father his children could rely on, but the shadows of their past loomed large. Every moment was a battle against the demons of addiction and loss. In a world filled with pain and betrayal, he fought for Shania and Carl, hoping to shield them from the horrors that had haunted him for so long. Yet the scars of their broken family were deep, reminding them that life is often a fragile balance between love and despair. After the divorce, Antoinette begged Brad for a chance to be a mother again. She insisted that she could provide a home for Shania, yet her words masked a terrifying reality. Antoinette lived in a grim trailer park, surrounded by chaos and instability. Her sister and her sister's boyfriend contributed to an environment that was anything but nurturing. Friends and family warned Brad that sending his daughter back to her mother could spell disaster. They pointed to Antoinette's history of drug addiction and her reckless lifestyle. Every instinct screamed at him to protect his child. Despite these warnings, Brad felt an overwhelming desire to give Antoinette another chance. He believed a child deserves to know her mother, even if that mother was deeply flawed. Brad's internal struggle was intense, torn between a desperate hope for family and the dark reality of Antoinette's life. I can see why he wanted to believe in redemption, but that choice proved disastrous. Sending Shania into that unstable environment would become a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. The truth is, sometimes a desire for connection can lead us down horrifying paths, and in this case it placed Shania in unimaginable danger. A false sense of safety filled the cramped trailer on the night of November 10, 2009. Inside, Shania, her brother Carl, Antoinette, her sister, and her sister's boyfriend were all asleep, completely unaware of the horror that was about to unfold. The darkness wrapped around the trailer, hiding the fear that was lurking just outside. Somewhere in the shadows, Antoinette's sister and her boyfriend heard strange noises. They brushed it off, thinking it was nothing out of the ordinary. Their indifference echoed throughout the night, a mistake that would haunt them. In the early hours, Antoinette suddenly burst into their room, crying and panicking. She claimed that Shania was missing. That moment marked the beginning of pure terror. Immediate chaos erupted as they searched the trailer frantically, hearts pounding in their chests. The sense of dread grew heavier with each passing second. Carl, still half asleep, claimed he had seen a man in the trailer earlier. That chilling revelation sent a shockwave of fear through the group. How could they have allowed this to happen? The night, once filled with innocent dreams, had transformed into a nightmare from which they could never wake. The realization that a little girl was lost, possibly in the hands of a predator, sent chills down the spines of everyone present. The clock was ticking, and they knew time was running out. Carl's shaky voice cut through the panic, identifying the man he had seen earlier. His words sent a chill down everyone's spine. The name he spoke was Mario McNeil, also known as Mano, the ex-boyfriend of Antoinette's sister. The realization of his involvement added layers of horror to the already terrifying situation. Despite this revelation, Antoinette hesitated to call the police. It felt wrong, almost like she was holding back in a way that raised alarms. Her behavior struck everyone as suspicious. This lack of urgency fueled doubt and anxiety among those around her. It is difficult to fathom how a mother could act in such a way when her child was missing. After what felt like an eternity, Antoinette's sister finally pressured her into making the call. Around 7 a.m., Antoinette dialed the police, her voice shaking as she reported Shania missing. Every second counted, and the weight of the delay hung heavy in the air. Meanwhile, in a dark twist of fate, Mario McNeil had taken Shania to a hotel. He checked into a room under his real identity and brazenly claimed that Shania was his daughter. As the sun rose, the hotel staff grew suspicious when they saw the Amber Alert flashing on their screens. However, they failed to act on their instincts immediately, a delay that would prove to be catastrophic. Instead of jumping into action, they hesitated, allowing the nightmare to deepen. In those crucial moments, the lives of everyone involved spiraled further into darkness. It is haunting to think about what could have happened next, and how the fate of an innocent child hung in the balance, while adults struggled to respond to the alarming reality surrounding them. Once inside the hotel room, the unthinkable happened. McNeil subjected Shania to unspeakable horrors that no child should ever endure. He assaulted her in the most horrific way, his actions fueled by a twisted sense of power. In the midst of this nightmare, he snorted cocaine, seeking a high while plunging deeper into his own darkness. Eventually, he strangled the innocent child, extinguishing the vibrant light that was her life. It is hard to grasp the pure evil behind such actions. How can anyone commit such an atrocity against a 5-year-old? The depth of this crime is beyond comprehension, leaving us searching for answers in a world that often seems to make no sense. After committing such a monstrous act, McNeil displayed a shocking nonchalance. He carried Shania's lifeless body as if she were nothing more than a discarded object. Checking out of the hotel, he walked out as if nothing had happened, leaving behind the remnants of a crime that should have shaken the very foundation of humanity. It was only later that hotel staff began to piece together the chilling events. After discovering cocaine scattered throughout the room, they finally called the police. However, by this time the tragedy had already unfolded. On November 16th, the search finally took a tragic turn. Shania's lifeless body was discovered near Highway 87. The sight was horrific. She was found half-naked, carelessly discarded under a wooden log, surrounded by garbage and dead animals. This haunting image is hard to shake off. The innocence of a 5-year-old girl reduced to something so sad and lost breaks the heart. It is difficult to comprehend how anyone could treat a child this way. The discovery of her body marks a sorrowful chapter in a tragedy that could have been avoided, leaving behind only grief and unanswered questions for those left to mourn. By November 12th, detectives managed to track down McNeil and arrest him, but the truth was still buried deep beneath layers of deception. During questioning, McNeil's lies flowed freely. He denied ever being at the trailer or knowing Shania. Even with clear evidence against him, he remained adamant. Meanwhile, Antoinette was also being interrogated. Instead of cooperating with the police, she mirrored McNeil's behavior, weaving a web of lies that only deepened the mystery. As the investigation continued, it became clear that Shania's fate was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. The community, still reeling from the shock, could only watch as the truth slowly began to emerge, piece by painful piece. A horrifying moment arrived when Antoinette finally broke down and confessed to the police. The truth she shared was horrifying. She admitted that Shania had never been kidnapped. Instead, Antoinette had handed her daughter over to McNeil, all to settle a $200 debt. In a desperate bid to escape the grip of her own poor choices, she made the unthinkable decision. It was either repay McNeil or fulfill his twisted demands. Tragically, Antoinette chose to give her daughter away. The realization of this betrayal is almost unbearable. How could a mother betray her own flesh and blood for such a small amount of money? For Shania, the consequences of her mother's choice were tragic and irreversible, leaving a community grappling with the horror of what happened. The courtroom became a stage for unimaginable horror as McNeil faced charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. When the verdict was announced, he was sentenced to death. His behavior throughout the trial was chilling. Instead of showing any sign of regret for his actions, he laughed. On the other side of the courtroom, Antoinette faced her own reckoning. She was charged with second-degree murder, human trafficking, conspiracy, and several other charges. In July 2011, she received a sentence of 17 years in prison. Her reaction to the trial was deeply disturbing. Even while the evidence piled up against her, she had the audacity to claim she was a good mother who had done her best for Shania. This delusion only added to the horror of the case. The trials did not just seek justice for Shania. They exposed the chilling depths of betrayal that can exist within a family. This tragedy began when Shania was sent to live with her mother, leading to the unimaginable horror that followed. As I share this case with you, it is hard to wrap my head around how such darkness can exist in people who are supposed to protect their children. Shania was just a little girl full of dreams and possibilities. This case highlights the urgent need for child protection and community vigilance. Thank you so much for watching. If this video resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more cases like this. Together, we can raise awareness and help ensure that children like Shania receive the love and protection they deserve. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.